Have you ever heard the saying opposites attract? The idea is that we are most drawn to people who are different than us, people who have different personalities, interests, and tastes. For example, if you're a quiet or shy introvert, you'll probably be drawn to someone with an outgoing, life of the party personality. If you love sports, you'll be drawn to a creative artist. But I've got some news. This theory doesn't actually play out in real life. Almost all of us are more likely to spend time with people who are more like us, not less like us. We connect better with people who have similar personalities, similar interests, and similar ideas. We not only gravitate toward people like ourselves, we intentionally move away from people who are different. We like people who see the world like we do. It's our commonalities, not our differences, which seem to make for great relationships. Some people might even say that the more you have in common, the stronger the relationship will be. That's because having things in common often leads to connection. It allows us to feel more comfortable. But here's the one big problem with this. We're surrounded by people who are nothing like us in our schools, our neighborhoods, on our sports teams, social media feeds, at church, and in our family. The environments you're in, both physical and digital, are full of people who are completely different from you. These people have different thoughts, perspectives, and ideas about the way things should be done and the way life should be lived. If you look around or spend a few minutes on social media or listening to the news, our world feels more divided than ever before. People can put their opinion out there about literally anything. You see, hear, or read about people giving their opinion on things like who's the best sports team, or whether or not you should date in high school, how much homework you should have, the best fast food chain, or the latest influencer gossip. Now, those are all kind of silly examples, but we all know it gets much more serious. When it comes to hot topics, people can get pretty heated. Everywhere we look, there's some sort of differing thought and opinion. In a polarized world, unity can feel impossible. So is unity even possible? Is that what we need to strive for? And is there anything we can do to make a difference? Let's talk about it. Last week, we looked at how Jesus used the tradition of the Passover meal to help his followers remember all he had done for them. Many now call this the Last Supper because it's the last time Jesus had dinner with his disciples before he was crucified. After Jesus and the disciples finished the meal, they went to the Garden of Gethsemane, a place where you can still visit in Israel, where Jesus spent some time praying. Now think about this for a minute. If you could pray for anything right now, what would it be? Some of us might be praying for something like a good grade on a big test to actually get that passing grade this semester. Some of us might have prayers that are a little more desperate, maybe for a family member to be healed or a relationship to be fixed. But if you were to pray a final prayer near the end of your life, what would you pray for? If you had to pray for one thing before you go, what would it be? That's a tougher question to answer, isn't it? My guess is that what you'd pray for right now isn't the same as what you'd pray for at the end of your life. Why? Because when it's the end, there's a greater sense of urgency. Because when time is short, our words matter more. At the end of our lives, we probably wouldn't pray for a new car, more followers, someone to go out with, or to pass geometry. The stakes would be much higher, so the prayer would be for what's most important. Wouldn't it be fascinating to know what Jesus prayed for in a moment like that? Thankfully, we can because John, one of Jesus' friends, recorded it for us. I am praying not only for these disciples, but also for all who will ever believe in me through their message. Jesus prays for his disciples and all who will ever believe. That's people like us. In his last moments, Jesus prayed for those who would follow him personally. That blows my mind. But look at what he prayed for. I am praying not only for these disciples, but also for all who will ever believe in me through their message. I pray that they will all be one, just as you and I are one, as you are in me, Father, and I am in you. And may they be in us so that the world will believe you sent me. I have given them the glory you gave me, so they may be one as we are one. I am in them and you are in me. May they experience such perfect unity that the world will know that you sent me and that you love them as much as you love me. Jesus prayed for his disciples and anyone who would choose to follow him to be one. In a final prayer, he prayed for his followers to be unified. He didn't pray for strength for the church, money for the church, or even courage for the church. He didn't pray for us to be right about everything, to win arguments, or to win debates with the people who have different opinions than us at our school. He prayed for us to be united. And being united means to be for each other, to work with each other, to encourage each other and fight for each other and pray for each other no matter how different we are. But why is that kind of unity such a big deal? Just like disunity can derail a team, a group, or a family, it can also derail a church. Over time, the church got a lot bigger, so imagine how many more opportunities there were for disagreements. And we know how differences can create difficulties, even in ancient times. Things like arguing, bickering, and gossiping. Things that can destroy a group. Things that can make a group unattractive. No one wants to be a part of a group known for frustration or arguments or divisions. But I think it's even more than that. Think about it this way. Hang on. Check out these amped up fans at a huge sporting event. You can literally see the unity. They're all wearing the same color, experiencing the highs and lows of the game together. Or think about fans at a concert. I mean, look at these guys. Hands in the air, shouting out the lyrics together. There is not a better feeling in the world. A ton of strangers, but unified by the music. On the other hand, think about those situations where everyone is clawing and competing. We see it in sports all the time. The disunity of trying to hurt or push one another down or tearing each other apart, doing whatever it takes to get ahead. I mean, look at these guys. Or another picture of disunity we see all the time, when people just aren't bought in. No one shows up. And the few who do don't really seem all that into it. When it comes to a crowd that's cheering and celebrating together, or a clawing and competing team. When it comes to a room of people enjoying the event singing together, or bored and unengaged, which one seems more appealing? Which one seems more fun? Which one is more likely to attract more fans? One sends a message of unified passion, and one sends a message of boredom. Now, hopefully that helped you see the impact unity can have. Look at something Jesus said one more time. May they experience such perfect unity that the world will know that you sent me and that you love them as much as you love me. Jesus is saying the way we treat each other will affect what people believe about him. Our unity will make Jesus' message more believable, and our disunity will potentially do the opposite. Now remember, unity doesn't mean we agree on everything all the time. Differences and diversity make us stronger. But unity does mean that we seek to keep moving forward together. It means we keep our focus on what matters most, even while we're still working out the rest. That's a huge responsibility for those of us who follow Jesus, because we all have people we care about, people we go to school with, people on our teams, or people in our families who don't know Jesus. And our unity or disunity can affect not only whether they come to church, but also what they believe about God. When you think about it that way, unity becomes a much bigger deal. In how we love and treat one another, our unity becomes a way for the world to see God. So how do we become more unified? If you're like me, you're more likely to focus on our differences in the church. Think about other Christians who annoy you, intimidate you, or behave differently than you. Trust me, and I know that it's way easier to trash talk them, judge them, or argue with them, but all of us tend to focus more on our differences than our similarities. Or maybe it just feels impossible. The world or even the church are too divided and polarized to try to be unified. It feels too big to tackle. But as we see from Jesus' prayer, our job as followers of Jesus is to learn how to rise above our differences and stay united in the biggest thing that matters, our love for Jesus. If we have that in common, all the other differences become much smaller. And guess whose responsibility it is to promote and protect the unity in this group? It's not the person next to you, it's yours, it's mine. We are responsible for our own contribution to the unity of the church. This is good because that gives us a lot of control, which means a lot of responsibility. You can't help what everyone else will do. You can only help what you will do. The reality is this: unity begins with you. It begins in your relationship and the people in your small group. It begins in the way you treat people at church and at school. It begins in how you talk about people from our church. It begins with how you treat people from other churches. It begins with how you react when someone who follows Jesus frustrates you. It begins when you realize that your family isn't exempt from Jesus' prayer for unity. And oftentimes, for unity to work and get the attention of those around you, you will have to make the first move. You will have to be the one to say hi first, to sit down by a different person first, or be welcoming to the new person first. And this is difficult because we always want someone else to make the first move. But the reality is, it begins with us. So much is riding on this. I think that's why Jesus prayed for it near the end of his life. He knew how difficult it would be. He knew that we'd all have a million excuses why we shouldn't love and treat each other well. He knew that our tendency would always be to let our differences divide us. But if we're going to accomplish the mission Jesus gave us, we must have unity. Soon after Jesus left Earth, the church started changing the world, like big time. No one had ever seen people who were so different stand together. It was a diverse and different group of people worshiping together and taking care of one another. They had never seen a group so committed to working together to take care of those around them. The unity of the early church changed the first century world, which allowed the message of Jesus to change the world. Imagine if it could also change your school. Imagine if it could change your family. Imagine if it could change our town. How could you, today, work toward unity? How could you pursue unity this week with your small group? Who could you forgive? Who could you celebrate? Who could you spend time with who may be different than you? Remember, this isn't just a nice thing to do. Unity is essential to accomplishing any goal, and unity has to come from a genuine place. Jesus wanted to make sure that before he left, his disciples knew that it was vital for the church to influence and change the world. Remember, unity begins with you.